You know that feeling where you learn something new and you're like, oh my gosh, if I had known this years ago, everything would have been different. Welcome to Worldly Families. I'm Justine Janae. Traveling to over 40 countries and living abroad has shown me that the mainstream American way of doing things is not always the best. I'm all about showing you new ways of being and doing so you can live and parent more intentionally and more joyfully. In this video, I'll be talking about how to wean your baby or young toddler off of breastfeeding. Step 1. Choose the right time to wean your baby. The AAP, or American Academy of Pediatrics, recommends breastfeeding until at least 1 year old, and especially the first 6 months exclusively breastfeeding your baby. If you can, obviously, there's no judgment here. If it's not in the cards for you, then that's okay too. But if you are on this breastfeeding journey, AAP says at least a year. The World Health Organization recommends 2 years of breastfeeding. All around the world, people breastfeed up until 3-4 years old. In some developing nations where food is scarce, maybe even up to 7 years old. So if you're one of those people that looks at a toddler breastfeeding and goes, that's weird. No, we're the weird ones in America for weaning our babies so early. Side note, just don't waste your energy on judging people. Just let people do them. I personally weaned my daughter Autumn at 18 months, and I'm on track to do the same with my son Onyx, who's 17 months right now. How did I personally make the decision of when to wean my children? Was it this, okay, I'm going to choose a middle road between the 1 year recommended by the AAP and the 2 years recommended by the WHO? No, actually that's totally just a coincidence. If you've been watching my channel, you might have an inkling that I would trust the WHO more than the American Academy of Pediatrics with the recommendations. Then why am I not breastfeeding for 2 full years? Well, because I'm ready. There's a lot that I love about attachment parenting. This idea of follow the cues of your baby, allow them to self-wean in their own natural timing. I agree with that. All of that is great. And there's another person in this relationship, the mom. So it's also a balance of your own needs and wants and desires and emotions and feelings of readiness. There's more to consider than just what's best for baby. Oh my God, she said it. She said it. When Autumn turned 18 months old, I left for my first about 3-week residency at Duke for my MBA program, and so I couldn't breastfeed her anymore. At least I would have had to go through a whole hoopla of pumping and saving milk, and I just didn't want to. So I just weaned her, and it happened pretty naturally. She just started eating more food and drinking less milk, and I didn't even do any research or have to figure anything out. It just sort of happened. With Onyx, that boy is a tank. He is still in the 100th percentile for height, weight, and head circumference. He's a big boy and he loves to eat like his mama. So for Onyx, I have had to do a little research about what is the best way to go about weaning if the baby is not just kind of naturally weaning off on their own. This time around, I just personally feel ready to move on from the breastfeeding phase. So you need to consider what's best for your baby, what's best for you, and then there are other environmental and scheduling logistical factors to consider. If you're leaving on a trip and you don't want to pump, like was my case with Autumn, or if there's a bug going around, you might hear my nasaliness right now. I'm a little under the weather. And if your baby is feeling a little under the weather, breastfeeding can be very helpful for boosting their immune system because they get so many nutrients from it. So I may decide to extend it a little beyond 18 months just with everything happening with COVID right now. I'm gonna kind of see how things play out over the next few weeks and how healthy everybody is and weigh and balance it based on all of those factors. And that's what I would recommend that you do too. Step 1, night wean. Night weaning means not feeding your baby at all during the night. You may be thinking, but what will happen? I'm going to explode. No, actually, what happens is your body adjusts because breastfeeding works like a business with supply and demand. When the baby stops eating as much, it signals to your body that you don't need to produce as much milk. And the cool thing is that I did not know until a few months ago is that this also happens throughout the hours of the day, meaning if you stop feeding just at night, your body will be like, all right, let's lay off the night workers. The night shift can go home. We don't need to be producing any milk during the night. But we'll keep our day shift going and keep milk production strong. In fact, maybe we'll even up the ante and produce a little bit more so we can still get in those calories. It's pretty amazing that this happens all automatically without you ever even needing to get a degree in business. Prior to learning this, I had been so scared that if I stopped feeding my baby at night, my milk production would go down across the board all the time and I wouldn't be able to breastfeed him anymore. Not the case, which is amazing. The best way to night wean is to actually do it cold turkey. So explain to your baby, even if they're not very verbal yet, just explaining to them what's happening. They kind of understand even energetically what you're saying to them. So tell your baby, I'm not going to be feeding you milk at night anymore, but I'll keep feeding you during the day. Then you stop cold turkey, no more milk at night. It did take me about 2 or 3 nights for my body to catch up. So I woke up halfway through the night at about 3 a.m. or so and pumped. And yes, it did suck. It was not very fun to wake up and pump in the middle of the night. But 2 or 3 nights later, then I have my freedom back all night long. So, worth it. For co-sleeping families, it can be harder to night wean. So, we actually co-slept with both kids for the first 7 months. We had a family bed. Then, from 7 months to a year, we moved both kids into a crib in our room. And then, from 1 year on, we moved them into a crib in another room. Because of that, it made it really easy to night wean because Onyx wasn't laying next to me smelling the milk all night. And there are hardly any resources out there to help co-sleeping families night wean. I recently came across Dr. Jay Gordon, and I'll link to his information in the description below. If you're a co-sleeping family and you want to night wean, he has a schedule to help you do that. Step 3, reduce feedings. If your baby is already a young toddler in that 12 to 18 month range, then they may already have reduced the amount of feedings throughout the day. If not, start now getting them down to maybe a morning feeding, an afternoon, and an evening feeding. After a week or 2 of this, whenever it feels right, you can cut out another of those feedings. So you're only doing 1 per day. Once you eliminate a feeding, don't do it sometimes. Don't go back sometimes. That's actually harder on your baby. It's like teasing them. They're never going to know if they are going to be able to get it or not. You just got to, just like the night weaning where you go cold turkey, same thing when you eliminate one of your daytime feedings, and then the next one, and then finally the last one. Make sure to let your baby know as you get closer to weaning them off completely that the milk is going away soon. Even if they're not speaking in words back to you, if you have a young toddler, like a 12 to 18 month old, like an old baby, a young toddler, a bodler, if you have a bodler, then they understand a lot. They understand a lot of language, even if they're not using it yet. So explain to them that the milk is going away soon, so that when it happens, they're not shocked. They're not like, where did it go? They've been expecting this to happen. Just phrase it like, you're getting older now, so the milk is going away soon. There is another approach to this, which a lot of people recommend, and I've tried for a while, which is called don't offer, don't refuse. So you're never offering them the feed. You're never initiating it. But if they come searching for it, you're not going to refuse them either and generate a whole power struggle. I try to keep that mentality woven into the way that I'm doing things. So instead of refusing a feed, I really rely on things like distraction or replacing it with maybe a special drink. For some people, that's just water. Depending on your thoughts on dairy, you might want to choose a lactose-free, organic, ideally grass-fed whole milk, maybe up to the age of about 4 when kids naturally wean off of milk anyway around the world. Some people choose goat milk. You might even blend up whatever milk you choose with some strawberries or banana, depending on the time of day and how much sugar you want them to have. Some people use a mixture of goat milk with vanilla and cinnamon and maybe even warm that up. It's nice to give them a special little treat kind of drink that they get instead of the breast milk. Step 4, supplement their nutrition. If you are going to wean your baby off of breast milk, make sure that they're getting the nutrients that they would have been getting from breast milk throughout the day. So depending again on your thoughts on dairy, you might want to supplement with some more cheese or yogurt or milk throughout the day. If that's not your thing, or if you're vegan, spinach has a lot of calcium in it. There, cooked spinach, obviously for a baby, maybe blend it up. There's lots of other ways that you can supplement their nutrition. Step 5, process your emotions. Weaning a baby off of breastfeeding can be a very emotional experience. On the one hand, you're like, oh, I want my freedom, I want my body back, I don't want to have to plan around this, I want to be able to take trips, etc., etc. On the other hand, it can be really sad. It's admitting that your baby is growing up, and especially if, like us, we're planning on 2 and done. You never know what happens, but our plan is that we're done after this. And so that's a really sad thing to admit too. It's like, oh, this is the last time I'm ever gonna breastfeed a baby. Ultimately, the weaning can be as fast or as slow as you want it to be. Do whatever feels right for you and your baby. For me, I fed both kids on demand for the first year. Then I went down to about 3 feedings per day, not on any particular schedule, and some days I would feed them more than others. I wasn't necessarily like, it must be 3 times per day. That just sort of naturally happened as they began to eat more and more solid foods. And then at around 18 months is when I just sort of naturally am weaning both kids off. It's when I felt ready both times. And I'm excited for what's next. No matter what your breastfeeding journey looks like, I fully support you. Please, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will respond to the best of my abilities. Also, it would really help me out if you could please subscribe and click the bell to be notified every time I release a new video. I wish you the absolute best of luck on your weaning journey, and congratulations in advance, mama, because even just breastfeeding for any amount of time is already a feat, and then weaning off is another feat. So double congratulations to you in advance. I'll see you in the next video.